Okay, so in this video, we are going to ask our user for the name of the student. That's fine. And then we're going to ask again in our student app, we're going to use static methods to get the scores, score 1 and score 2. And then we're going to create an instance method that calculates those scores and returns the average. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I want to point out is that I am not going to create a new field for the average. And the reason is anytime something can be calculated, it's better to just calculate it using the things that can change rather than putting in a special variable for it. Because if for some reason something changes, now we don't have to update another variable because it's being done in the calculation. So if we can rely on calculations for data, then that's what we're going to do. So let's just get at it. All right, so we're going to create a static method that is, I guess, where we're going to be returning doubles. We're going to get, or I guess ints, these are scores. So we're going to return an int, and we're going to call it ask for exam score. Okay, and then we're going to do, let's do an int for which one. And the idea is it exam 1 or is it exam 2? And so let's just finish that out. So string, let's see, I'm thinking ahead here. So let's write, enter a value for score, whatever one we receive, which one, there we go. And then we're going to put a comma and which one. Oops, this should be a placeholder. Okay, so we're going to ask the user which, we're going to get a score. We need to receive a value, right? And so we need to do something like string in value equals, because readLine will only return a string, readLine. So we're going to return that, and then maybe we need to get an int score. We're going to have to convert it, int parse in value. So we have to convert that string into an integer, and then we can return a score. Okay, so remember that this is a method that is really outside of the class because it's information that we are getting from the user to build information about each of our students. So, and by using which one, the return is still the same, so now I can either send in score 1 or score 2. And so now the next thing to do is set those values. So let's do student 1 dot score 1 is equal to, then we're going to call that method ask for exam score. It's IntelliSense is letting me know that this particular method wants to receive an int, which one, and I guess int 1, that satisfies that. Okay, fantastic. And then student 1 dot score 2, we're doing the same thing, right? Equals ask for exam score 2. So now we've got 2 exam scores that are set. So now calculating that is part of the class of employee. Wrong video. This is a student. Okay, so now we're going to create a public method that's going to return, let's say, the double. Maybe average is a double. We're going to calculate average, A-V-E-R-A-G. We don't need to receive anything because this is an instance method. So, why is the squiggly line? Because it wants to return something. I'll get back to that. This is an instance method, and so it knows information about its particular score and its particular name and so forth because it's an instance of that student. All right, so we need to return a double. So what we're going to do is return. We're going to take in, well, this instance knows that I have a score 1. This instance knows what score 2 it has because we've assigned it up here. And then we're going to divide that by 2. And that should return a double. So now that's been satisfied. And so now we can print out, right line. We need to call that method. That method is calculate. Actually, that's a great point. Let's just verify this. So I'm going to type in calculate. Why is it not showing up in my drop down? Why? Well, that's because remember what I said, that calculate is an instance of a class. Therefore, in other words, the only way to use that is I have to associate it with a class member or a class object. So I have to associate it with student 1. Now if I use calculate average, there it is in IntelliSense, and that makes sense because that method now says, oh, I'm student 1, and because I'm student 1, I know what my score 1 is, and I know what my specific score 2 is because it's specific to that instance. So now I can have calculate average. I don't need anything. It's letting me know that, so I should be good to go. All right, so now let's run this. I'm going to comment out our name there so we can just see the calculate average work. So now our code should ask us for exam 1 and put that into score 1 of student. It'll ask us for exam 2 score and put that in score 2, and then we'll be able to get back the average. So let's just see that work. Debug, start without debugging. Enter the student's name, Lilo, because I'm not being creative. Last name is, was it Pelikai? 85 and 95, and there's our average score of 90. So that's a lot in a little bit of code, but hopefully it is making sense. The difference now between using these static methods that are inside of our student app class that do not need to be run with any object associated with it because we have the word static here, versus our calculate average, which is an instance method of the class and has to be associated with an instance or an object of that class, in this case student 1, and as a result knows its own specific scores and its own specific information.